Good morning, St. Thomas and Grace. This is Reverend Rachel. I'm sitting outside of my house today with my new flock of ducklings in the background. And since today's one of those days where it's going to be about 90 degrees, I thought that it might be a really nice break in the day to sit in the shade and spend some time in meditation. Although the presence of the black flies is going to add some layers to my meditation here. So one thing that's been sitting in my mind and heart in the last week or two, as I've been continuing to pray with the world, has been the pervasiveness of anxiety, at least in my own life, and it seems like also in our collective experience of this time of COVID. So I thought for today, I'd just spend a moment talking about anxiety and Christian meditation as a way to pray through anxiety. So, first of all, what is anxiety? Anxiety I've heard described as a fear for something that is not necessarily specific. So it's sort of an overwhelming sense or a consciousness of fear about something, but it's hard to name exactly what the thing is. So with that as a starting point, how can meditation help us with anxiety? And I'll be very blunt. I'm not offering this as a cure for anxiety. I am offering this as a way to, as a friend of mine who practices Buddhism might say, a way of befriending our anxiety, because our anxiety is a part of ourself. So that's the framework from which I'm approaching this meditation today. And I imagine we might spend some time with this today, and we might revisit it again next week. We'll see how many weeks this meditation series might want to be. So when we think about anxiety, a couple ways that I've found that anxiety shows up in my life is if I find I'm having a really hard time focusing, or if I'm finding that I'm really focusing on stuff that I normally wouldn't put that much attention into. Sometimes anxiety can show up as a shortness of temper, tiredness, sort of waking up tired and not really having not done a lot of activity, but still feeling tired anyway. All of this is normal, and it is just a part of your own experience of what it's like to be alive in this time. So this meditation will be an offering to befriend those feelings and to sit with them and learn what we can with them. So now that we've spent a moment thinking about what is anxiety, I'll spend a moment talking about what is Christian meditation. And this is probably review. We've been working with Christian meditation and talking around it for the last couple weeks. But I thought I'd bring two friends with me into this conversation today. One is Richard Rohr, and the other is James Finley. And they both have a lot of collections of things to say about meditation. But funnily enough, the heart of it for both of them that I'll focus on is meditation as a way to get to that place without words, that we can remember our oneness with God. So when both of them talk about meditation, whether it's about meditation of anxiety, meditation on an image of Christ, meditation on joy or beauty or whatever it is, the hope for that meditation is to get to that place without words where we can feel and remember that we are one with God. James Finley, in his book Christian Meditation, phrases it this way: meditation is the transformative process of shifting from surface, matter-of-fact levels of consciousness to more interior, meditative levels of awareness of the spiritual dimensions of our lives. That shift from matter-of-fact consciousness to interior levels of awareness. And I love the way he says that. And he uses an image to describe the process of meditation as the process of wading into the ocean. You stand on the seashore, and as you step into the water, it's true that you're only ankle deep in the water wherever you are in your meditation. You might only be a couple toes, you might be an ankle, you might be in up to your neck, but wherever you are, you're in the ocean. So I find that a helpful backdrop when I'm thinking about meditating. So the practice that I'll invite you into is actually to sit in quiet. It'll feel maybe similar to centering prayer. And both James Finley and Richard Rohr speak at length about centering prayer, Richard Rohr in particular. So this sitting in some silence, and as a touchstone, I'll invite us to use our breath. When you feel your mind starting to really race, or starting to make lists, or starting to get overwhelmed, just take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. And instead of letting our minds go blank, what I'd like to invite you to do is to start by imagining the things that give you anxiety and just naming them. And we'll spend some time in that moment of naming the things that give anxiety. And if this becomes overwhelming for you, just go back to your breath. Just remember that you have that centered breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. So we'll start by just thinking about the things that make us anxious, naming them, not trying to stop them or argue with them or fix them, but just to be aware of them. And all the while we'll be checking in with our breath to keep ourselves from getting too overwhelmed. But we'll start there. And then as we sit in that space, I invite you to just feel what your body feels like when you think about those anxieties. And that's where we'll stay. We'll stay with naming and with sitting in our bodies as we begin to understand the shape of our anxieties, if we have them. So as usual with meditations, I invite you to sit in a comfortable place. It might be a shady spot outside. It might be a comfortable chair inside. And I invite you to take a couple deep breaths. Feel your body against the ground. Feel the ground supporting you. All the while checking in with your breath. Relax the muscles of your face, your shoulders, your neck. And as you exhale, I invite you to think about a feeling of anxiety, something that is causing you stress or keeping you from sleeping. And just let the words form in your mind, whatever it is. And maybe it's not a word, maybe it's an image. And maybe it's not something that has happened, maybe it's something that could happen. All the while breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And I invite you in your own practice of this to stay here maybe for 5 minutes. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we'll do a couple breaths. And then we'll move on to body awareness. So a couple breaths in and out, in and out. Now as you sit in your chair or on the ground or in your bench, or wherever you may be, I invite you to start at the top of your head and let your awareness move down your body. And notice if there are places that feel tight, places that feel tired, places that seem to hold stress. And as you move your awareness, if your mind also skips around to those places of anxiety that we identified, do you feel a pull in your muscles in any spot, or a tightness, or a looseness? Pay attention to that. All the while breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And you might do this scan multiple times. This might take 10 minutes. And if it feels too overwhelming, or if the sensations in your body become too strong, just take a moment and go back to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And after the time that feels right to be sitting in this posture of body scanning, after that time has come to its rightness, I invite you to spend a couple of moments saying thank you to God. Thank you for this body that notices. Thank you for a mind that can name truth, that can name fear, and that can sit with it. Thank you for showing us, through your Son Jesus, what it means to sit like he did in that garden the night before he was betrayed, to sit with fear and to not let it overwhelm us, to sit with fear and to trust in you. Thank you for bodies that can breathe, for ears that can hear your creation, for eyes that can see, and for all of those other blessings that you give to us. Amen. So I invite you to play with this practice. This is a serious and can be a very intense practice to get into. So I encourage you, if you find yourself struggling, or if this makes it harder for you to focus, or more stressful, if you start seeing anxiety show up more in the ways that I mentioned, go ahead and put it down for a while, and just go back to something like centering prayer. This is not a practice that I can do often, to be honest, because it is so intense. So I acknowledge that, and I offer that to you also. Frodo, for instance, is channeling his anxiety by rolling on the ground. So with that little joyful benediction from the dog, I wish so many blessings to you as you move forward in your meditation, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. Amen, and take care.